Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show. Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode I'm joined by co-host Chris Mueller. We talked about films with ensemble casts here on the 6M many times in the past, and by ensemble cast, I guess I mean a cast of actors who probably or perhaps are already established, already have resumes, so to speak, in Hollywood. You know them from other projects. They may even be, top level movie stars. I mean, I'm thinking of Ocean's 11 and things like that, which we've never covered here on the pod for some reason. We may circle back to that at one of these days, kids. But the ensemble cast thing is something again that we've talked about here before. Sometimes it has the feel of a different movie, if I can put that out there, because again, you go back to the original Star Wars: A New Hope. How many of those actors did we really know besides Sir Alec Guinness? The answer is zero. I mean, people knew David Prowse, but he was, hidden in the suit. They didn't really know it. They knew James Earl Jones, but only his voice was in the film. You get it. So ensemble cast is what we're talking about here today, because we're covering what essentially, well, not essentially, it is a sequel, I guess, and maybe another chapter. I'm not sure how we're going to describe this. We'll get to it. This is Glass Onion, which is a Knives Out mystery. No, it's not the Beatles song, although we are going to discuss that because it's all over the place here. And there's a lot of Beatles references that we'll dig into here today also. This is a good one, kids, and we've got a lot to cover here today. Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, and also titled Glass Onion, is a 2022 American mystery film written and produced by Ryan Johnson, produced by Johnson and Ram Bergman. It is a standalone sequel to the 2019 film Knives Out, with Daniel Craig reprising his role as a master detective, Benoit Blanc. It was, of course, as we said, directed and written by Ryan Johnson. Stars again, yes, an ensemble cast of characters. Produced, of course, by T Street Productions. We all know that. Don't we? Don't we all know that? No, I've never heard of them either. It is a streaming service exclusive, distributed on Netflix, released on September 10th, 2022, and also November 23rd, 2022 in the United States. December 23rd, 2022 on Netflix. There's a lot of release dates here, kids. There's a lot to keep up with. Running time is 139 minutes. It had a budget of $40 million. Supposed box office is $15 million. Interesting. Very interesting. That, kids, is a lowdown for Glass Onion. So, Chris, we talked a little bit off mic before we started here today. You're a fan of this film, right? Has it been a while since you've seen it? I know it's a fairly new release, but how many times have you seen it now, do you think?
I mean, honestly, I've probably watched it a total of 4 or 5 times, because I sometimes put movies on in the background while I'm working. And so I'll come in and out of it for 5 minutes at a time. So this is one that I've put on a couple times because it's kind of a nice, easy watch once you've seen it a few times. But the amount of times I've sat down and paid attention, probably 3.
Wow. I think this makes the second full time I've seen it, because I watched it in preparation for this episode. I enjoyed the film, man. We're going to talk here today about how it holds up versus, I don't even know if I can call it part one. I don't know if calling it part one makes any sense, because it's not really a sequel. It's a continuation of Benoit Blanc. How do you feel about that? Do you view this as a sequel or just like a standalone film?
I mean, it's a sequel in the sense that it's the same character and it takes place at a later time, but it's sort of more along the lines of how they used to do the old Sherlock Holmes movies. One movie didn't necessarily connect to the next one. It was still the same Sherlock Holmes, but nothing that happened in one affected the other and vice versa. So I don't mind that at all. Daniel Craig being literally the only character to reprise his role is fine with me, even though there is one other actor from the first movie who makes an appearance. Who I'm not sure if you know about that, but yeah.
So who's the actor? Because I was thinking it was Hugh Grant, but he's not in the other one, is he?
No, it's a guy named Noah Segan or Segan. He plays Daryl, the slacker who's just like walking around the island the whole
Right.
time. In
Right.
in the first movie, he is the partner of the main detective. So in the first movie, he's got a mustache, short hair, wearing a cop's outfit. In this movie, long-haired hippie.
Did we ever get an explanation of who he is in this film? Because he kind of just disappears.
No, and I love that because he is thrown in there to be the most intentional red herring ever. Because the whole movie, the first time I'm watching it, I'm sitting there questioning, like, it felt like they threw Daryl in there to intentionally throw you off, but make it
Mm,
so obvious that you couldn't possibly think it was him. And then for a short time, that made me think it was going to be him who was responsible.
mm.
But no, it felt like that was one of those things where Ryan Johnson just wanted that guy to be in the movie again, so he just came up with a random character that had nothing to do with the movie. And Edward Norton even says right at the beginning, like, "Oh, that's just Daryl. He's not part of any of this," and that's completely true.
Oh, because you kind of think maybe he'll be the guy that saves the day, or he's the guy that has the secret. He has the answer to what's going on.
No, he's literally just doing an impression of Jeff Lebowski.
That's good. That's good stuff. Yeah. I'm the dude, man.
Like he's
So,
literally lighting up a joint while Benoit Blanc is lighting up a cigar, and they're watching the house burn. Like, what a perfect scene.
oh, it is. God, man. And a big Lebowski fan here. Gonna have to do that on the 6M eventually because it's very much worth covering. So we're already sort of talking about the cast because again, ensemble cast. I'm sticking with it, kids. So we're going to start off here with again the main guy, the top guy as it were, Benoit Blanc, portrayed by Daniel Craig. Dude, compare him in this film versus the other one. What do you think about too far in this one, too over the top, about the same? What do you think?
I think it's one of those characters that, like, the first 5 minutes you're watching him, you're a little thrown off by how ridiculous the accent is and just how he is in general. But like once you kind of get into it, he's not even the most ridiculous character in either movie.
No.
So it's sort of like, I don't know, he's kind of just a living cartoon character almost. But the thing that I liked was that in the first movie, you didn't really know how good Benoit Blanc was at his job until the very end of the movie when he kind of lays out like how he already knew all that stuff. This movie didn't have to do any of the heavy lifting of establishing whether or not he was good at his job or not. So they were just sort of able to let him be this amazing detective throughout the whole movie. So like the fact that he just spoils Edward Norton's little murder mystery thing in 30 seconds, I popped so hard. That was such a funny little scene.
I think I heard I heard the comparison to Foghorn Leghorn, which is pretty hilarious to me.
Well, I mean, Chris Evans literally yells that at him in the first movie. He's like, "Get out
That's
of here with
right.
your Foghorn Leghorn drawl." Like
Oh,
making a
I
big deal out of it. And didn't he call him like a Kentucky Fried Detective or something like
I
that?
think
Like,
now that part I remember, but I'd forgotten the Foghorn reference. That's funny.
yeah. But yeah, man, like it's ridiculous, but at the same time, isn't that kind of what movies are for? Like, so many of the leading characters we've watched in movies over the years don't feel like real people.
Hmm.
But actually, this movie, I think, almost grounded him a little bit and did make him a little more real. Like, just adding in the little detail of Hugh Grant being his boyfriend and just the way he was interacting with Janelle Monáe's character, like you just started to feel like he was more of a person and more of a character than you did in the first movie, where in the first movie he's almost in the background and Anna de Armas is the main focus.
You know what? I'm 100% agreeing with you. I don't get and like people hate on Daniel Craig for other reasons as well, not just a silly little accent, but like, dude, to me, movies is it cool to have realism? Yes, and you get those those Oscar winners, and they're insanely deadly serious. And this mirrors real life, and it's true crime or whatever you're talking about. But like, dude, sometimes movies just meant to be popcorn films, man. I just want to have fun. This character's fun. He can be frustrating and get on your nerves at times, but watching him dissect it, and there's something that we don't get until afterward. Like we don't get to see him really go through the steps. He's going through them, but we have no idea what he's thinking until the big reveal happens. So it's interesting to me the way they play that. But and honestly, if a guy like this existed in real life, if number one, he'd be a celebrity. He would be a celebrity. He would be all over social media, whether he wanted to be or not. Dude, I think he would be over the top. I don't think he would be mild mannered at all. I think he'd be exactly the way he's portrayed here.
Well, and isn't that kind of a trope with the private detective character? Like, look how many different PIs we've had on TV and in movies who've been weird, like
Yeah,
Monk. Remember
true.
Monk?
Of course.
Or oh god, what was the other one? I can't remember, but like there's just been a bunch of kind of quirky private investigator characters. Um
You could say
and I
Columbo
think
to a certain degree, for sure.
yeah, even Columbo or like hell if you want to go real weird with like Dirk Gently as a PI.
Right.
I mean, it is a kind of a very like niche genre where I feel like there's more famous PIs from movies than there ever will be in real life.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's just such a fun character, and I'm really curious to see what they do with him in the third movie because these two are so vastly different. Like the setting is different, the characters are completely different. I'm just very curious to see where they put him in the third one.
Yeah, because there's something else I'm going to ask because I don't have the answer to this. Is there a plan here? Is it a trilogy? Is it going to be more? Do they even know right now? Because I have no idea.
Yeah, after because the first one was made by Amazon, and then I just think they
Hmm.
passed on making any sequels, and then Netflix swooped in and was like, "Well, we'll sign you up for two." So there's
Right.
at least going to be a third one, but I know Daniel Craig has expressed a desire to play the character for as long as Ryan Johnson will write it because he has a ball doing it. And why
Oh,
wouldn't he?
sure.
Like that kind of character is an actor's dream. Like, oh, I get to wear somewhat funny clothes and put on a crazy accent and be like a mystery solving weirdo. Like, yeah, hell yeah, any actor would say yes to that.
I mean, you mentioned Sherlock Holmes, and I think James Bond is a good comparison too of the story
Hmm.
that doesn't really have sequels; it has chapters. What would have to happen here for some of these wackadoodles to back off of him just a bit? Is there anything that could happen story wise, or people are just going to be who they are anyway?
What do you mean?
Like in terms of how he gets criticized, where the action is too much, he's too
Mm.
much, whatever. What else would have to happen? Would the story have to get bigger with different, bigger actors that would share the stage with him? Because I think he's doing a great job, actually.
I mean, I don't think there's ever going to be anything that will change that perception because there's always going to be some people who just don't like fun.
Ah, right.
And I'm not saying that if you don't like Daniel Craig in this, you don't like fun automatically. Like, it's okay to not like this movie or Daniel Craig, but personally, I think this is the best thing Daniel Craig has ever done, these two movies. Like, I'm
Hmm.
not a fan of his run as James Bond. It's just those aren't my Bond movies. Um,
Yeah, dude. Roger Moore's my James Bond. I'm sorry. So,
well, like for me, it was Pierce Brosnan. Like the
yeah.
first Bond movie I saw in the theater was Goldeneye,
Ah,
which is like damn near a perfect James Bond movie.
right.
But I like Daniel Craig in other things. Like, have you ever seen Layer Cake?
I wish I could say I have because I know it's considered to be this great movie. I have yet to see that.
Fantastic movie. It's one of his early like starring roles, and it's just like a fun, like it kind of feels like the director was sort of trying to go for a Guy Ritchie sort of thing. Like
Right.
it feels like it could have taken place in the same world as Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels or Snatch. Like you have some kind of funny British people running around doing crimes, but Layer Cake is a very good movie with a great cast.
Right. Right. I have to check that out. Yeah, again, I have no issue with him in this film at all. I think he's fantastic. Speaking of ensemble cast, Edward Norton, dude, I hope that Edward Norton is getting the flowers he deserves because this guy is so good. And I don't know how Hollywood perceives him. I've not, dove deep to find out what the buzz is on this guy. But I'm not saying this because I'm biased as a Marvel guy, but I like him. I just think he's so good. And like, I think this movie showcases again how he's so talented. He is Miles Braun, a billionaire and owner of a large tech company. And he's essentially the villain of this film. I mean, he is the villain of this film, really. All roads lead to him. What's your take on Ed Norton here as Miles Braun?
I think he does a fantastic job getting Edward Norton to play a douchebag tech billionaire
Mm,
who doesn't actually know what he's talking about. It's kind of a brilliant choice of casting because Edward Norton doesn't play that kind of character very often.
mhm.
Like, Edward Norton, not only does he not play a bad guy very often, but he just doesn't. Like, the last bad guy role I can remember for him was The Italian Job.
Oh, wow.
I can't think of a single villain role he's had since then. But on top of that, he tends to always play characters who are smart and have it together. And in this movie, he's making up words to sound important, but he just like, can we just abbreviate this moment? That's not a word. Like,
It's
I love
great.
how they called him out for that later because when he said that, I was like, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, it doesn't sound
And then
right.
later they call him out. I'm like, okay, good. But yeah, like, he's so good in this. And I think Edward Norton is one of those people who he has a reputation for being difficult to work with because he'll come in and rewrite scripts if they let him, or he'll like make whatever demands. But I think he's one of those people that he works well when he's working with somebody else who's as creative and dedicated as he is.
Hmm.
So, like, Ryan Johnson is very much a dedicated filmmaker who has a very clear vision. So, Edward Norton probably respects that, and I'm sure it was easy to work with him on this, just like it was when he made the Wes Anderson movies that he's been in. Like, Edward Norton likes filmmaking and he likes filmmakers, but he doesn't like the system, quote unquote. So, I think a movie like this totally plays to his strengths because it's like, it's a small cast, it's a small set, and it's all dialogue and it's all acting, and it just allows him to kind of sink his teeth into that character, which you can tell is the thing he really enjoys to do. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think he was a great addition to this movie, and because he's kind of a likable actor, you almost spend half the movie thinking like, I don't know if I want him to be the villain.
Oh yeah, dude. No, 100%. Yeah, for sure. And a guy has an audience in his hip pocket when he gives that feel. Dude, I've been there before. Having a character where I'm like, please don't let this guy be the villain. I love this guy too much. I mean, you could make the case here, Chris, that that's two Marvel heroes they end up being the antagonist in a Ryan Johnson film, which is kind of cool.
Well, and then if you think about all the other people who have been in Marvel things that have appeared here too. You got Drax, you got
True.
Catherine Hahn.
Yep. Wow, that's true. Yeah.
She's her show is like filming right now. Agatha, that'll come out this year.
Yep. For sure.
So yeah, it's and I think Leslie Odom is supposed to be in one soon. If he, I don't remember if that was announced or not.
Interesting.
But yeah, so yeah, Marvel at this point is so big that we're eventually going to get to the point where like more actors have been in Marvel things than haven't.
I agree with that. Yeah. 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 And all you haters out there, that's good. I'm happy.
I mean, listen, I understand that there are people who are tired of the Marvel formula and they want some changes because I do too. Like, I want different things from the Marvel universe. Like, Werewolf by Night is one of my favorite things they've done in the last year or two because it was so different.
Hmm.
But that's kind of why I like these movies too. They feel very different from the typical fare that we get. Like, these are just kind of fun, goofy mystery movies.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. That's fair. I can't argue
And
with
they're
that at all.
mid-budget too. 40 million is a lot of money, but it's not a lot for a major Hollywood production with a
No,
cast like this.
not at all. I totally agree.
So
In fact, that number kind of blew me away.
the fact that we can still get great movies that are being produced that aren't 100 to 200 million dollar productions is good, because there was a while there where mid-level productions really weren't getting much love.
Yeah, that's very true. Unfortunately, that's very true. So yeah, he's I just love Ed Norton. I think he's great here, and I'm not going to use word comfort zone because he's a great actor. So like, I don't think he's out of his comfort zone at all. It's just in terms of what the audience is accustomed to seeing him in. Perfect choice here, right? I mean, you don't know if he's perfect, right, until you see the film and see how. But he's very again, he's very likable. He's understated. He's never over the top. He goes just enough to the edge with the ridiculousness and then pulls back where he needs to. He feels like a real person, whereas Batista doesn't feel like a real person. Some of these guys do not feel real. He feels real to me, but like I think that's a good mix because you don't really know if he's done anything wrong or not to the end. I don't. I think he's the best one to have played this role.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody in this movie was cast really well. Like, Batista as a men's rights YouTuber is not something I would have thought would work as well as it did. And
Yeah.
then the fact that he's like still living with his mom who totally owns him was so funny. And the fact that she figured out the puzzle box just without any issue was even better.
It's so good.
I
So good.
really was hoping his mom would show up again in the movie at some point, but I don't know. She was just a fun little cameo.
Yeah, she was just there quick. But yeah, you're right. She's not gonna like I think she slaps him at one point because like he keeps smarting off to her and then he eventually has to say he's sorry to her, which is freaking awesome. Um let's go ahead and flip to Dave then. Big Dave Batista as Duke Cody. Best name ever. Duke Cody, a video game streamer and men's rights activist on Twitch and YouTube. Uh yeah, it's a different vehicle for him as well, but he pulls it off. He's great. I mean, it's Batista. It's like, and I'm only comparing the two because of physical similarities. But like when you see The Rock in a film, no matter what character he's playing, it's The Rock. It doesn't really matter because he's big, he's muscled, he's tattooed, he's jacked. Well, Dave is big, he's muscled, he's tattooed, and he's jacked. And Dave does very well. But like you kind of always think, well, there's Dave Batista, and I love this guy, and let's see what character he's playing now. Whereas with Edward Norton, it may be, okay, there's Ed. I wonder what this character is. But like, and it's not really fair to Dave to say that, right? But Rock goes through the same thing, I'm sure. But what did you think about Dave Batista in this film?
I think Dave Batista has officially proven throughout the last 2 years of his career, 3 years maybe, that he is the best wrestler turned actor in terms of range.
Mm,
Like, I can say with confidence that Batista has played several different characters that feel like different people. The Rock always feels like The Rock.
mm.
Most of John Cena's movies, he feels like John Cena. I will say Peacemaker is different, but that's more credit to the writer. I love Batista in this movie so much. I think he does a great job playing this guy who is like all bravado and none of it's real. And the dynamic he has with the young girl playing his like way too young girlfriend too is was great.
Oh,
I'm not
fantastic.
familiar with her. Madeline Klein. I didn't know of her before this, but I really thought she did a great job because you see her throughout the first like half of the movie and you think she's just this vapid airhead, and
Mhm,
then you realize like she has like a 1 minute conversation where all of a sudden you realize like, oh no, wait, she's actually smart and has ambition.
mhm. She was on Stranger Things in 2017 as a character named Tina.
I don't remember who Tina was.
Me neither.
I mean, 2017, was that like the first season? And that was a while ago.
That was a while ago. I'm wanting to say the answer is yes to that, but I could be wrong.
I don't know, but she was great. I thought her and Batista played well against each other. And even though it seemed like why would all these people be friends, like once they sort of did all the flashbacks and showed how Janelle Monáe kind of brought everybody together, it really did make a lot of sense.
Oh, dude, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, and like we said, everything works here. I mean, that's to me, that's always a determining factor of whether or not something's going to be entertaining. Does everything work? You can complain about the story, you can complain about set design, cinematography, but if the cast is clicking, there's a pretty darn good chance you might have a passable film, if not a great film. And I think everybody's fitting here. Um, so you believe in your heart of hearts that Dave Bautista is a better wrestler turned actor than Hulk Hogan? Come on, man. Who are you fooling?
Yeah, God knows Hulk Hogan, all those Oscar-winning performances
Those,
in Suburban Commando, and what was the other one, like Mr. Nanny or something?
yeah, yeah, the uncrowned Oscar winning Hulk by God Hogan.
But man, I mean, oh, one thing I know we already talked about Edward Norton. I got to bring this up. In
Mhm.
the flashbacks, they intentionally made him look like Tom Cruise's character from Magnolia, which I think is hilarious.
It's great. Yeah, yeah.
That is one of the funniest details that they could have put in, because I didn't put it together until I read it later on, but I knew it looked familiar. I'm like, who does Edward Norton look like with that dumb haircut and like the vest over the shirt, like a very specific look? And then it's like, as soon as I read it, it clicked. And it's like the exact same color shirt that Tom Cruise is wearing when he's on stage talking about men sexually dominating women.
Mm-hmm.
So
God,
yeah,
dude,
having Edward
that's
Norton play a douchebag who dressed up as a different douchebag, it was so great.
yeah, dude. There's a lot of little things here. If you spend time and break them all down, that's a 4 hour podcast. I mean, honestly, to just go through every little nuanced thing that's in this film, because there's a lot of stuff here to go through, man. Yeah, 100%.
I could talk about Janelle Monáe alone for an hour. I loved her in this movie.
I was just gonna flip to that. Yeah, dude, she is she is portraying twin sisters. Spoiler alert, kids. Twin sisters Helen and Andy Brand, and I think they're from Georgia in the story. I think both of them from Georgia, something
Yes.
like that. Yeah,
Yes.
and of course we know that Andy was let's see, Miles's ex business partner, and this big thing, this collective, these individuals together, known as the Disruptors, right? And some of that, I gotta be honest with you, man. And we'll get into it. Some of that is a bit vague for me. Like, I really don't know what the F we're talking about. Like, what did they build? What did they supposedly do together? How is it connected? Like, I don't know. Maybe I fell asleep in that bit, but you're right. Janelle Monáe is great here, and she portrays two different sisters who feel like two different actresses, especially when she's trying to assume her dead sister's role here. Talk about her in this film and what a difference she makes for this cast.
I think the most impressive thing about this is that, and I'm going to steal this from Ross Berman on Twitter because he pointed this out.
Mhm.
Who knew that Janelle Monáe had a perfect Holly Hunter impression in her back pocket?
Oh, well done. Yeah.
Like, it's so good. Her accent in this, it might not be 100% realistic to people who actually live there, but she just sounds so good. And it makes both characters feel totally different. Like, she's the nurse who, barely has time to throw her hair back in a ponytail versus the CEO woman with the perfect haircut. Like, she played both roles so well. I think Janelle Monáe is one of those people who this role is going to bring more in her direction, because people are going to be like, oh, she's not just a great singer, she can actually act too. Okay, let's do something with her.
Yeah, she's really good here. And I mean, you could make the argument that Andy's a likable character, but we don't get to see too much of her. But her sister is fantastic. I was so happy she wasn't dead in the end because I legit thought that they'd shot her, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, that whole revelation, like, I know that there were some people who criticized the movie for being like, you're revealing twists halfway through the movie that weren't being telegraphed, but it's one of those movies where if you go back and watch it a second and third time, you do pick up on all the little hints. And I think it's a movie that rewards you for multiple watches,
Mm,
just because it wasn't that easy for people to figure out the mystery while the movie was going didn't ruin my enjoyment of it at all.
right.
Because I don't think that every mystery movie needs to be a movie that you can solve before the reveal happens. Because that, I don't know, that takes the fun out of it for me sometimes. Like sometimes I just want to be surprised. As long as they can tie everything together with a bow at the end and make it look good, then I'm happy.
Oh, dude, I did the same thing here I do with a lot of these whodunit films. Is in my head, I'm mentally formulating theories and whatnot. I don't think I was right about anything I guessed. So nothing. I think I was wrong on everything.
I went back and forth on whether or not Daryl was involved. I went back and forth on every character being like there was a little while where I was convinced that Jessica Henwick's character was going to be revealed as the killer. Like
Mhm.
she's the assistant who's clearly overqualified for her job and just constantly being forced by Kate Hudson's character to just do stupid for her. And yeah, I think this movie did a great job kind of keeping you in the dark on things the first watch, and then you go back and watch it again and you're like, "Oh, yep, I see this little thing that tells me what's happening." Like I did not notice that Edward Norton handed Batista the drink that eventually kills him, but on
Right.
a rewatch, I did.
Yeah, same here. I noticed that today when I rewatched it for
And
sure.
also on a rewatch, when Edward Norton is running around in that dark hallway, I noticed the gun in his hand, which I did not see the first time I watched it.
Oh, see, I didn't think to look for that. Yeah.
So there's all these little things that you really pick up on a second or third viewing. And I love movies like that because rewatchability is what I think is the ultimate success factor for a movie.
I was just gonna say I love what you were getting at when you said that that the film rewards on rewatch. I love films that do that.
Exactly. And it's so much fun to be able to it is fun to figure out a mystery at the same time as a movie, but it's almost more fun to be able to go back and spot all the little things that they included that like did hint towards the eventual ending without actually giving it away.
Mm.
So yeah, I got to give Ryan Johnson a lot of credit for how he's crafted both of these movies to be like great mysteries that actually wrap up nicely at the end, but they're not always the first movie, they show you that the guy committed suicide right away at the beginning. The mystery isn't about that. The mystery is about who was going to try to kill him.
Good call. Yeah, yeah.
And in this one, like you don't even really realize that a murder is being investigated until halfway through the movie. Like the trailers make you think it's going to be Edward Norton who's getting killed almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's good stuff. Nice bait and switch there.
I don't know. There's so many things about this movie that I could talk up liking, but we need to talk about Catherine Hahn.
Oh, she's next. Yeah. She is the governor of Connecticut. Dude, somehow it fits. It looks right. She feels like the right person to do this. She is Claire DeBella, Governor DeBella, if you will. Um, Neurotic, perhaps, scared to death of being found out, of being caught near trouble, which she has to be. She's governor, right? What about her in this film? What do you think?
So I have loved Catherine Hahn since the first episode of Parks and Rec she was in.
Mm,
Like I know she's done stuff before that, but that is the first role where I really felt like she stood out and was she was like she has a lot of roles in movies where she's like the main character's best friend. She was literally Kate Hudson's best friend in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. This was
true.
their like first time doing a movie together since then. So having her play a political character was brilliant because she did that so well in Parks and Rec. But what I loved about it was that like they showed that they established right away that she is pretty much just a regular person. Like she's, filming her interview in her office, but she's wearing pajama pants because the camera is not going to see what pants she's in. And she's a mother with children who are running around like chickens with their heads cut off. And
Mhm.
she's exhausted. Like, she just, I don't know. There's something about that woman. Every role she plays, she just does it so well. There's something so inherently watchable and likable about her. And I think the fact that, like, she managed to still stand out against a backdrop of all these other over the top characters is really impressive, because she's kind of the most down to earth normal person there,
God, she really is. She really is. Yeah,
other
yeah,
than maybe Jessica Henwick's character.
yeah. True. Yeah, dude. Yeah, well said. And she tends to get those roles. I think those are her best roles. And like the Agatha Harkness stuff is fun. I'm not saying she's not fun in that. She's not good in that. But I think she shines when she gets those roles that appear to be plain slash ordinary slash everyday, but there's kind of something behind the scenes as well. Which I guess you could argue that's Agatha from the Scarlet Witch series, that she did appear to be okay and be normal and be plain until there was something behind the scenes. So maybe that is the same character after all.
I mean, I feel like she did enough to differentiate them, though, to where I don't feel like she's just copying her performance. You know
Oh
what I mean?
no, no, I agree totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um yeah, dude, she's very good in this, and I can't wait till that Agatha series starts, man. I'm looking forward
Oh
to it
my
for
god.
sure.
And they cast Aubrey Plaza in it. Like, Aubrey Plaza in a show about witches might be the most perfect casting of anything ever.
I don't know how familiar I am with her work, honestly.
I mean, she's April in Parks and Rec.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I never got into that show. Should I give it a chance? Is it that good?
Okay, so the first season is super rough.
Mhm.
As soon as season 2 starts, it's so much better.
Wow.
And then towards the end of season 2 is when Adam Scott's character and Rob Lowe's character get introduced, and that's when the show really starts to like find itself. But Parks and Rec is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. I've probably watched the whole series through at least 7 or 8 times.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would highly recommend giving it a shot. It's just that first 6 episodes that they did for the first season, it's kind of like The Office, how that first short season was really kind of rough,
Oh, it was totally rough.
and then it immediately found itself. And both shows were made by the same guy, Greg Daniels. So kind of goes
And
to show you. But Mike Shore was one of the main writers on Parks and Rec the whole time, and Mike Shore is one of my favorite writers. Like, he did The Good Place, and he did a bunch of stuff on The Office. He did a bunch of stuff on Parks and Rec. Like, he's got a good pedigree.
yeah, I mean, as far as The Office goes, I watched like the first 3 episodes of the series and I tapped out.
See, in the early episodes, they were trying to make Leslie Knope the female Michael Scott.
Right.
Once they stopped trying to do that and they made her a very competent but slightly neurotic employee of the city, like, having her be good at her job and actually really smart was the best character change they could have made. But come on, man. I mean, you have to watch just for Nick Offerman as Ron Swanson. Like, the
Right.
brilliance of that character in that role cannot be understated.
Yeah, I may need to dive back in at some points. For some reason in my head, I was thinking that they had continued it or that I don't even know how long it
Oh, they
ran,
did a
honestly.
they did a COVID reunion special where it was basically all of them on a Zoom call.
Oh,
But it was
interesting.
kind of creative how they did it. Like, so are you familiar with Chris Pratt's character from the show? Like, he's kind of an idiot.
Yes, yes.
So like in the reunion special, he accidentally locked himself in the shed, and the whole time he's just trying to play it cool. Like, yeah, I meant to lock myself in here. Like, Chris Pratt gets a lot of shit these days, but his role on Parks and Rec is one of the best things ever.
Right. Yeah, I'm a Pratt fan. You're right. He gets a lot of stuff thrown at him these days, but like, I try to separate, comments outside of films that I love because otherwise I may not love them anymore because of certain people.
Sure, and I'm not even talking about his personal life. I'm talking about like the fact that he's sort of settled into playing a very specific type of character,
Yeah.
and none of the characters he's played recently resemble the thing that made him famous, and that's what I think people are upset about. They're like, I like it when you were a lovable doofus, not a leading man.
Right. Yeah. Well.
I like Chris Pratt. I think casting him as Mario was dumb, but
Yeah.
I'm willing to
Agreed.
give it a shot.
Agreed. I don't get that at all. And I mean, like, people getting nuts because he's not Italian American. I'm thinking, you guys know this is a cartoon. This is a video game. What are we talking about? It's a video game. Like,
Plus, it's like, it's an Italian American stereotype written by Japanese people. Like,
yes.
let's just. They're in the Mushroom Kingdom. He's fighting a dinosaur half the time. Like, just focus on what matters and the fact that it's fun.
Yeah. My God. Come back to me when he, takes the place of a Japanese American in a film. I don't know, but let's talk then, like an actual live action setting. But a voiceover for a video game movie, come on, man, insane.
So, one person I really want to talk about though is Kate Hudson.
Love Kate Hudson. She's so
I
good.
think this might have been the role she was born to play.
Really interesting.
Oh my God, Kate Hudson is a daughter of Hollywood. Like, her mother is super famous. She grew up in this business, and she's been around for a while. But like, casting her to play this like idiot socialite who doesn't know half the shit she says is offensive, and she thinks she's just keeping it real. Oh my God, it was so funny. And I'm sure she had a blast kind of sending up like these rich, entitled people she's kind of spent her whole life around. I think she did a fantastic job in this movie. And I've always thought Kate Hudson was a good actress who was just given a lot of crappy stuff. Like, she was pigeonholed into being the romantic comedy girl for a long time. I think she could have done more. And frankly, this movie, I think, kind of proves that.
Yeah, I love the fact that her character is genuinely so dim-witted. She doesn't understand a lot of the stuff she's saying is really highly offensive.
Oh my God, I love how it takes her like 30 seconds longer than everybody else to realize that it's Andy's sister and not actually Andy who's there.
Right. Yeah.
She's like, wait, you told me about your sister. Oh my God. Like,
Yeah.
it's so good.
And there's things they reference that are just hilarious. And I think it was what was it? She said it was a tribute to Beyonce or something because it was like Halloween costume.
Oh,
I'm like, oh God, what did she do?
Clearly implying blackface. Yeah.
Yes.
And then Jessica Henwick as her just exhausted assistant. Like, Jessica Henwick, the fact that her career has been doing so well since Iron Fist makes me really happy because she was the only good part of that show.
Yeah, it's hard to argue that. I'll be honest with you, season 2 much better than season 1.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, it was still tough watching parts.
But like, her career has gotten, like, she was in the new Matrix movie. She was in that Gray Man movie with Chris Evans and Ryan Gosling. Like, and she's played a different variety of characters that all feel completely different. I think it was great. And at times her character felt like unnecessary, but I think her character was there to add more to Kate Hudson's character. And I think they did that really well.
Yeah, Kate Hudson is Birdie J, great name, and former supermodel who, again, as we said, can't really put 2 and 2 together and figure out she's offending people. And then Jessica Henwick as Peg, and basically, like Kate Hudson's character is getting close to getting shut down here, as is the feeling with most of these guys that they're getting ready to lose something because of something dumb that they did or said, and they're all looking to Miles to kind of bring them back together. Dude, for me, Kate Hudson is always going to be Penny Lane from Almost Famous. I can't get her out of my head as that character, man. I can't help it.
I think that's probably the case for a lot of people. A lot of actors tend to be remembered for like one particular iconic role. And I mean, you can't really argue with that one being the one people think of with her because it was such a great defining role for her career, but it was so early in her career too.
Very true.
But
It
I
was very early.
I do think that this movie, like, she sort of had a slump there because let's face it, Hollywood isn't great to women who are over 40 until they reach grandmother age.
Mhm.
So to see her getting to play a role like this at this point in her career was great because I think it just allowed her to actually show like, hey guys, I can actually act. Like, I'm not just a pretty face, so like put me in more stuff. And I hope
Mhm.
she does get put in more stuff.
So, rounding out the main cast here, kids, is Leslie Odom Jr. as Lionel Toussaint, uh, who's really good here. There are moments of this cast, and not necessarily Leslie Odom Jr., because I think he's great, but there are moments here when it kind of feels like if you're one of these actors, you got to put your own stamp on this, because if not, this could have been played by anybody. And that's not to say that no one didn't do a good job, because they did. But I don't know. For me, I guess the way the characters are written was kind of an open book. Like, okay, she's a neurotic, former supermodel, and she doesn't really know what she's saying. She kind of dance. Go. Well, you got to breathe life into that. You can't just take that direction and play it flat. You have to breathe life into that and bring it to the forefront, make people remember you. And that's kind of Leslie Odom Jr.'s character. Tom Clark's 6M podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark's 6M podcast sent you. I don't know. He seems to be the flattest of the cast here. He's very good, but like the way his character is written, for me personally anyway, it's not jumping out as maybe Batista's character or even Catherine Hahn's character to some degree. But I guess maybe that's the key here, is that not all of these characters can be over the top and be boisterous and pushing the envelope. You have to have a couple that's anchoring it. So maybe that's Leslie Odom Jr. and Catherine Hahn's roles here. What do you think about Leslie in this film?
I think you did a good job. I think one thing they should have leaned into a little harder is that basically he's the guy who makes all of Miles' weird ideas work.
Yeah.
And they obviously needed somebody there to kind of be the naysayer of his weird little fuel that he was trying to market. So he did a good job playing like the resident genius. Like, he's the guy who actually is very smart and knows what he's doing. But I do agree with you that it felt like he had the least amount to do in the movie. And I almost wonder if his character was written in just solely to like have more characters that you could suspect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For
But
sure.
I think he did a great job. Like, I don't think there's a single weak performance in the movie. And I'm even including Ethan Hawke's like 30-second cameo. That was great.
So good. I wish we'd seen him more.
But like, what's funny is apparently he was in a like they filmed this in Europe somewhere, and he was in a different country in Europe filming Moon Knight. And Ryan Johnson
Nice.
called him and was like, "Hey, do you want to come over here on one of your like weekends off and just film a quick scene?" And he was like, "Sure."
That is pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that cameo. And the Hugh Grant thing was funny, dude, I have to say.
Oh yeah, Hugh Grant's cameo was really funny too. Like, I don't know. I just think the whole movie was really well crafted and really well done.
We also got to mention Joseph Gordon-Levitt is Miles's clock of the hourly dong, which is the best thing ever.
Ryan Johnson will not make a movie unless Joseph Gordon-Levitt has a role,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
like that's kind of how J.J. Abrams is with Greg Grunberg. Like, Greg Grunberg has been in everything that J.J. Abrams has ever made.
Very true. Yeah, very true.
Some
Yeah.
directors just have their lucky charm, you know.
Oh, dude, no doubt about it. There's a lot of those stories out there too. Um, well, there you go, kids. There's your cast. So, all right, do you like these? whodunit mysteries that keep you guessing for the entire film. Like, does it get mentally exhausting for you? Because I'm kind of back and forth on this. Like, this movie was fine, but I watched other things similar where, like, two-thirds of the way through, I'm like, I'm turning it off. I can't do this anymore. I can't. It's mentally taxing. Do you enjoy stuff like this?
I enjoy mysteries like this. Like Clue is one of my favorite 80s movies.
Mhm.
Um and like I was saying earlier, I don't necessarily need to watch it and figure out what's happening at the same time. I just there is something about this genre of movie that appeals to me.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed this film as well. This is one of the few that I shouldn't say few. I don't go around turning off movies at halfway through or anything like that. But like, there's been moments before where I've watched, I can't remember what it was now, and I just wasn't. It was just losing me, and I'm like, yeah, this is getting on my nerves. I think what kills me more than a film doing is a streaming series. Like, if it's 9 episodes and 5 episodes in, there's still, well, here's someone who else who may have done it. I'm like, dude, you're almost done with the show. Knock it off. But like a 2 hour movie, I'm okay with it. What do you think about the plot here? Not just the who done it, but like, obviously it's a film. None of this ever happened. It's too far out to be believed. But is any of this steeped in reality for you at all? Or does all this just say, look, it's a popcorn film. Don't read too much into it? Like, the part with the disruptors to me feels pretty real. These people who become friends and they're really tight until money gets in the way, and power and prestige and fame and all these things and personal agendas. That is probably for me the most organic part of this whole film.
Yeah, I mean they did a good job establishing like why that group of very different people were friends because they've known each other for a very long time.
Very true.
But I just think that there's a lot of characters in this movie that do resemble people from real life. Like Edward Norton being a dumb tech billionaire. Like I know a lot of people think it was an intentional shot at Elon, but it wasn't. Like they wrote this movie a long time before all the Twitter Elon stuff happened.
Hmm.
But Kate Hudson being this dim-witted socialite model, like that's a very real person. Catherine Hahn being a exhausted politician, that's very real. Like none of this felt overboard to me in a way that made the movie feel unrealistic, even if it was like slightly heightened personalities.
Is this a fitting second chapter, you think, to the first one?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a great follow up because it doesn't at all feel like they're just redoing the first movie. Like a
Mm.
lot of those old Sherlock Holmes serials, they follow a very distinct pattern. And I don't feel like this movie and the first movie have the same pace or pattern at all. And that's to
Mm.
their benefit.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's fitting. I think that the only real that there's two things that carry from the first one or the first chapter, whatever we're calling it. That's Benoit, right? And also the whodunit. That's really the only two things. And you could even say he goes into this, not regretting, but doubting himself, believing maybe he's lost a step. He spends all that time in the tub. The bathroom's full of books and whatnot. I mean, it's pretty funny, but like, he's not maybe as sharp as he was the first time around. Like, he had his 15 minutes of fame, as it were, or however long it is, like during the course of like the first movie, which I got to go back and watch now. But like, he has a very brief sort of brush with fame, and he's known for being a detective, a famous detective. But then like, it kind of feels like he's burning out just a bit. Perhaps he hasn't had anything to sort of quench the thirst for the solving a great mystery. So I like that they kind of brought him back down to earth, where maybe he's, can I still do this? Do I have it in me? And I'm circling back to what you said about the Ed Norton thing, dude. I love that he solved it in no time at all. That was freaking genius. I love that.
Well, and that also goes to the fact of like Edward Norton is not as smart as he thinks he is. Like,
Very true.
yeah, Benoit Blanc figures it out in like 30 seconds, totally ruins his party. But like, then you find out later that he kind of did that on purpose.
Hmm.
And I don't know, I just think it was great. But everything they did with like halfway through the movie kind of revealing that, oh, something else is actually going on and it's this. I don't think that that was a bad thing for them to do. Like, some people were like, oh, you can't make me realize halfway through a mystery movie that everything I knew was fake because now it's a different movie. But I think it worked in this movie's benefit, frankly. Because if we had known that that wasn't the real Andy the whole time, it would have ruined like half of the second half of the movie.
Oh, dude, I totally agree. Yeah,
You know what we didn't
yeah.
talk about? We didn't
Hmm.
talk about the ridiculous cameos of the people that Benoit Blanc was playing Among Us with in the tub. Like Stephen Sondheim, Angela Lansbury,
Yep.
Natasha Lyonne, and Kareem Abdul Jabbar. Like, what a group.
How did you assemble those four people for this one little bit of movie, I wonder?
I don't know. I mean, obviously Ryan Johnson is working with Natasha for that Poker Face show that she has on Peacock now, which
Mhm.
is like a murder mystery every episode. I've been meaning to watch that. But yeah, like, and then they had a Yo-Yo Ma at Birdie's party and Serena
Mm.
Williams as the workout. Like, you'd think she's just a video, and then she's like, "So you guys gonna work out or what?" And Danielle Craig and Janelle Monáe don't are like, "Wait, you're what?" Like, he just hires you to sit here on a webcam.
That's good. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, she just pops up for no reason.
Serena Williams pops up in movies once in a while. Like, she was in that Pixels movie with Adam Sandler for like two scenes.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. It's because oh, the one character, I forget the character's name, but he wanted to remember he wanted to have a three-way with her and
Oh yeah, Peter Dinklage and
yes,
Martha Stewart and
Martha
Serena
Stewart.
Williams.
Like
And then at
what?
the end, they're in the White House waiting for him.
Yeah. Such a ridiculous film Pixels is, but I actually really enjoy watching that movie. I can't help it.
I don't think it's as bad as some people say it is, but it's definitely like still just a goofy Adam Sandler, Kevin James comedy.
It is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's a whole other topic, but like yeah, I actually enjoyed that. Um I enjoyed this film. I don't know if well, I was going to say I didn't know if I knew what to expect. Obviously, I expected a whodunit, but I was very very glad to see that, like you said earlier, they didn't stick to formula. They didn't repeat scenes. They didn't, all this is just like the other movie. Like, dude, we've done the Hangover trilogy here on the 6M, and Hangover 2 is basically identical to part 1.
Yeah.
And Hangover 3 deviates. Hangover 2 is a carbon copy almost. And I'm like, why didn't you just deviate with the second one? Why and if you were going to do a copy, do it with the third film. Like, I don't know, take a chance on part 2 and part 3, circle back around to things that are very similar to part 1. To me, that would have been smarter. Of course, all those
Yeah.
films made a butt ton of money, dude, so maybe I'm dead wrong.
Which, like, personally, I can't rewatch those movies. I there's something about them that, and I'm like, the homophobic language aside, there's just something about those movies I don't enjoy, and I can't really put my finger on what it is. Maybe it's because they kind of like lean into bro culture a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
The Hangover just it's not for me.
Yeah, like I said, we covered all three of them here on the show, and I mean, I still enjoy them. If I told you I went around watching them all the time, I don't. But like if I decided to watch something and couldn't think of anything else, just wanted to put in something that was familiar, I'd probably watch one of them.
Oh
But
yeah, we all have movies like that. Like, I actually enjoy the Joel Schumacher Batman movies. It's not like I'm watching them all the time or even as many times as I've watched The Dark Knight or Batman Begins, but like, they're a guilty pleasure.
oh, they're guilty. They're guilty. They're not a pleasure for me. They're freaking guilty. Oh, so
Don't
bad.
let my friend Georgia hear you say that because she will yell at you. She
Wow.
likes she likes Val Kilmer as Batman.
I love dude, I thought he was great. He's the best part of the film. By
Oh,
far.
for
He was the
sure.
best part. Because the rest of that movie's a dumpster fire. But like he was very good. And I'm like, I wish he'd been given an opportunity to come back and do it again, but do it with a better script and a better director and whatnot. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I felt like he found a better balance of the Bruce Wayne and Batman
Mm.
parts of the character. Like, George Clooney did not feel like Batman.
I don't think
You
he felt
know,
like
he felt
Bruce
like
Wayne either.
George Clooney in a bat suit.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you know what? That's the thing is George Clooney is a great choice to play Bruce Wayne. He's a terrible choice to play Batman. And I know that that seems illogical, but like they are two very different types of characters. And I think Kilmer had he had that darkness he could channel to play Batman, but he could
Mm.
also just play like the billionaire, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, and you know, you can make the argument that certain guys are better as Bruce, like you just said, or better as Batman. Like Christian Bale still gets taught, well, he's good Batman, but it's Bruce Wayne, blah blah blah. And I'm like, I don't know. Everyone's gonna have their opinions on this stuff, but like, um, yeah, dude, that's a tough one for me because I mean, I'm not a fan of Clooney as Bruce or Batman. I just am. I just am not. He's a great actor, but I think he was miscast from the very beginning. He was miscast. I can't say that about Kilmer. Certainly can't say it about Keaton or Christian Bale. I just think, and you know what? I won't even say it about Affleck either. But I do believe that Clooney was miscast from the jump. Like,
He was
yeah,
cast because he was so big at the time, not because
true,
he was right for the role.
very
I
true.
mean,
Yeah,
hell, if you go back and look at some of the people they were considering for Batman before Keaton got the role, half of them don't seem like they would be good choices either. Like, I'm sorry, but Mel Gibson was one of the top choices, and I don't think he would have been a good Batman.
no, well, because they were looking for good-looking Hollywood leading men. That was their only criteria. That was it.
Right.
Because I think Tom Selleck was one of the choices that they had as well. And just
Oh my god, that would be a weird Batman with a
he's
mustache.
he's so great, and Tom Selleck is so great, dude. Tom Selleck was going to be Indiana Jones. We would have been living in a world with Tom Selleck as Indiana Jones, but at the very last, I'm not talking. Well, 5 minutes later, they gave it to Harrison Ford, but like he had to pull out because of his shooting schedule with Magnum PI, and they thought he could. Well, I'll make it work. You know, no problem. They wanted him. Lucas and Spielberg both wanted him, and he was the guy that was going to do it. And I'll be honest with you, I love me some Harrison Ford. I think Tom Selleck would have crushed it as Indiana Jones. As weird as it looks now, I just think he's an adventurer, but he's a ladies' man. He's got a beautiful smile, got those eyes. Perfect. As Batman, nah. Like you said, nah, it's not working.
Yeah, Batman's definitely one of those characters that I think you have to have a certain kind of personality or image in order to be accepted by the fandom.
Hmm.
And like most Batman castings that we've had have been met with a lot of criticism and then ultimately they prove to be okay. Like Michael Keaton, if you go back and look up articles about when he was first cast, people were like, Mr. Mom actor to play Batman. Ha ha ha. Like, they didn't think it was going to be anything special. I remember Christian Bale was actually kind of lauded as a good choice, but Robert Pattinson, a
Oh
lot
yeah,
of
I
people
forgot that
didn't
guy.
think
See,
that
I
was going to
forgot him
work.
already.
A lot of people didn't think that was going to work.
uh, dude, I listen. I loved Keaton. I didn't love him for Batman. I was one of those guys because I was a hardcore comic book fan, and we were just beginning to even think about what if comic book films came to the movies besides Christopher Reeve. Like in Batman '89 was open the floodgates for everything that came after it, you know. But like I'm like Michael
Because
Keaton is
before that, it was
Batman.
like Superman and Howard the Duck.
That was it. Yeah, we don't talk about Howard the Duck.
I talk about
But
Howard the Duck all the time.
I'm not talking about Howard the Duck. I'm one of those guys that I can't even like it for a cult classic. Like, and I've seen it a bunch, but I don't know. There's something I don't know. I don't know.
I
Maybe it
love
may.
it. I love it for how dumb it is.
I was gonna say maybe if I watched it now, I'd have a different take than what I did the last time I saw it. But um, not what I was gonna say was the first time I saw Keaton in the suit, I saw a photo, and I was like, all right, all right, I take it back. Never mind what I said. He looks great. So
See, and that's the thing that those movies got so right. Those first two Batman movies, the Batsuit looked amazing.
yeah.
And I think that helped sell the whole character. Because if they had put him in a blue and gray Batsuit like what Adam West was wearing, it never would have worked. But yeah, so Knives Out, I don't know when the third one is coming out or if they've even like started casting or any of that stuff, but I'm pretty sure we'll probably get it within the next year or two.
Would this make sense? We're talking about streaming services at the beginning of this episode. Would in a different, I don't know, in a different iteration of this, let's say that the character is handed to another actor. Could you see this becoming a streaming series where every episode is like a different, different villain of the week, murder of the week, Columbo kind of, like we mentioned him earlier too. Do you think it would work, or is it too complex the way these stories are written to be like that?
That's what Poker Face is.
Ah, there you go.
So Ryan Johnson's show on Peacock with Natasha Lyonne, like she basically is just a character. I don't know how she has this ability because I haven't watched the show, but she can just kind of tell when anybody is lying to her.
Hmm.
And like somehow she gets wrapped up in solving a murder in the first episode and then she kind of just keeps doing that, I guess. So yeah, I do think it could work, but I don't think they could do Benoit Blanc without Daniel Craig now. Like
Mm.
recasting him would be a mistake. You'd have to just make a new character.
And then it would feel like it's being mimicked, right?
Right, but if Daniel Craig was willing to do like a 6 episode mini series for Netflix or whatever like that, like I think it would be fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoy this film. I don't know what we're looking at for part three or how long we're looking at, but um, back to the casting choices. We didn't talk a whole lot about part one because that may become another episode altogether at some point. But Chris Evans is the heavy. Spoiler alert, kids. Sorry. And then a likable guy, good looking guy is Captain America for God's sake. But he's the heavy. And then like here, Ed Norton, he's a little bit slimier, right? But like he's very likable. And you're like, I don't know if I want him to be the bad guy. Then he turns out to be the worst of the bunch. I mean, those kind of twists are the ones that keep you guessing. Honestly, they may have found the right formula here. Like the mustache twirling villain can't always be the guy you expect because then it just. I mean, if you figure it out in 15 minutes, there's nothing left for you to watch, is there? It's over at that point.
Right. And what's great about both these movies is I think that even once you know who it is, like just like I was saying before, the rewatchability of these movies is so high. And I think what's great is about Chris Evans' character in the first one is that you actually kind of like his character until you learn that he's the
Hmm.
bad guy.
Hmm.
Because he's kind of like he's the one telling all these rich racist idiots to go to,
You're right.
and it seems like he was genuinely trying to help Anna de Armas's character for a little bit there. But that's also what disarms you and makes you not necessarily expect him to be the guilty party at the end of the movie. So it's great. In this one, I don't think they ever really make you like Edward Norton as much as they did with Chris Evans, which is good because it doesn't feel like they're just repeating the same beat from the first movie.
Mm. Yeah, good call. Good call. So, do you have preferences? Maybe a weird word. Do you enjoy these ensemble cast movies? Forget the who done it part of it. Do you think that's is it a gimmick too often? You think at times? Because I've seen films where I believe it's kind of a gimmick, but like I think it works a lot of the times. In the movies, it doesn't. You're like, was it too many big name actors? Was it too many high profile? Like there's a lot of franchises out there like that, and some of them are just one shot films. Are you a fan of the ensemble cast idea, or would you rather see a cast kind of built from the ground up and they have to live together for three films or whatever the number is?
I think it depends on the situation. I like a lot of ensemble cast movies, but there are some where it feels like there's characters that are unnecessary and are just there to fill time. But I think Ryan Johnson, one of his strengths is being able to write enough for each character to make them feel individual and stand out. Like none of the characters in this movie, even though we talked about Leslie Odom's character kind of feeling tacked on, like none of the characters felt totally pointless to me. Um, what, but I do love movies that are about like multiple people. Like a movie when it's just like one guy is the main character the whole time can get a little boring sometimes.
Right, right.
Like
Yeah, yeah.
John Wick is an exception. Like you're following Keanu Reeves the whole movie and it's great because Keanu Reeves is great. But one of my favorite movies that a lot of people have like never heard of is this really independent film called The Chum Scrubber. And it's an ensemble cast of like all these really great people, but none of them are ever really like leading characters. Like William Fichtner is in it, Carrie Ann Moss is in it, and it's like this big ensemble cast, and it sort of deals with how the different residents of this town kind of deal with the suicide of this one teenager.
Hmm.
So like some of the characters are his friends from school, some of the characters are his parents, and some of the characters are the parents of his friends from school. And there's all these different intersecting stories that all sort of mesh together at the end. I think movies like that where all the characters feel real do it well. But some ensemble movies, it feels like, okay, they wrote this guy to be the funny guy. This guy is the serious guy. This one's
Right.
the smart one. You know, like that can get a little played out.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's real easy to fall into a rut here, or with any film like that, honestly. And again, I'm glad to see that they didn't go that route here. Anything about this movie you would have changed? Any particular scenes that jump out at your characters, or do you think everything just fits?
I honestly can't think of anything I would change because I don't have any real complaints about the movie. Um, because like even the characters that I really liked that didn't have a lot to do, using more of them might have made them less special. Like if we saw a lot more of Batista's mom, she might not have been as funny as she was in her couple of
Hmm.
scenes.
Yeah, yeah,
Same thing with Daryl. Like Daryl just kind of popping up every half hour for 30 seconds worked perfectly.
yeah. That's really good. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything from me. Again, I enjoyed watching it the second time. I'm sure I'll probably watch it again. But yeah, it's again, I think it's worth a watch if anybody out there has not seen it for sure. Um, Going back to Batista real quick. So, because I had to ask you about this, I know that when the latest Guardians comes up, he has said this is his last run as Drax. We've been led to believe we're going to lose some people, we're going to lose some characters in this film. We don't know if Drax is one of them. It appears to be Rocket, may be one. What do you think about Batista's future in Hollywood? I mean, are we going to continue seeing him in films where it's a cast of characters, it's a not necessarily a team, but it's more than just him carrying the weight of the film? Do we envision a time where he is starring Dave Batista, and it's a powerhouse summer box office blockbuster that even the critics love and the fans are praising it? I mean, are we going to get to that with him, or do you think he even cares about that at this point?
Well, I know that like Dave more than anything wants to be seen as a real actor. He
Yeah.
doesn't want to be seen as just the action guy or just the former wrestler. So, I do know that we're getting him in the Gears of War movie. It's a video game adaptation.
That's
So, he'll
right.
be the main character in that. But I do think maybe Batista, his strengths lie in how good he is at interacting with other people. So putting him in a movie with a strong supporting cast, I think, is the best way to use him because how he interacts with all the Guardians is what makes Drax great. Not necessarily just Drax on his own. You know what I mean?
For
So
sure. Yeah.
yeah, I think we're gonna be seeing a lot more of Dave if he chooses to keep going. Um, but occasionally he'll have to do one of those movies where it's like that My Spy movie where it's he's a government agent and he's got to watch this little girl, you know? Like,
Right, right.
you know, all those actors take on stuff like that when they're getting going because they have to. But then we're also going to get a movie like Hotel Artemis, where he's just one of many memorable characters. So I do think he works best in these ensemble situations because he doesn't need to be the main focus all the time. And I think he's willing to not be the main focus all the time. Like, I think Batista has a much smaller ego than a lot of people might think.
Totally agree. 100%. Yeah, I've seen and heard him in interviews when he was first getting into this and Guardians was first becoming a thing about he's taking acting classes and he really was making an attempt to do this for real and didn't want to be laughed at, wanted to be taken seriously. So yeah, I respect that quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to this next Guardians movie because I do think it's going to be a great story for all the characters, but I know that the main focus is kind of going to be on Rocket's history a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah, I have to wait and see what happens there. Well, kids, there you have it. There is Glass Onion, and we didn't mention. We talked about Beatles references. Obviously, Glass Onion is a Beatle reference. Great John Lennon Beatles song. We also have him playing on the Ed Norton's playing on the sand as the boats come up and everything. So they've got it peppered through here, no pun intended.
I
And
love how he says that that's John's guitar and then he just drops
yes,
it in the sand and Birdie freaks out.
so good, so good. Yeah, dude, it's yeah, I appreciate that because I'm a Beatles guy, right? But like, have we finally gotten past the Ryan Johnson? Oh, Ryan Johnson's horrible because of what he did to Star Wars. Are people finally getting off that now, or do you think they're ever going to let that go? Because the guy's obviously talented director.
I mean, I don't know what they thought they were going to get with hiring Ryan Johnson. Like, you hired the guy who made Brick with
Mm,
Joseph Gordon-Levitt to direct a Star Wars movie. Like, you weren't going to get the typical Star Wars movie. I personally have moved past that, but there are some Star Wars fans who take that so seriously. So
yeah,
I don't know. I'm
yeah,
over it
it's.
though.
I am too. Um, in his defense, because honestly, why not? But in his defense, like he turned it on its ear and he didn't give the fans exactly what they expected because he wanted to do something different with the story. And then the fans turned on it because they wanted what they were familiar with seeing, what they were accustomed to seeing, which seems, I mean, there's only so many chances you can take with that universe. It's established. So, I mean, not to defend all of them because there's a lot of toxic wackos in the Star Wars fan base, right? But I can kind of see some of the pushback. It's like, you know, don't 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 keep breaking new eggs to make the omelet. There's a formula here that works and it makes billions of dollars. And I don't know, dude. I'm not defending anyone that attacked him because people make stuff way too personal. But I do kind of see the argument of why did we feel the need to make this into something that no one has seen before, this deep into the genre, the into the run of the films, which kind of seems weird. But what's done is done, and I don't hate that movie in the slightest. I still believe that the scene with what we come to find out as a hologram or the force projection of Luke is one of the best scenes I've ever seen in a theater in a movie ever. I think it's fantastic.
I think he did a lot of cool things in that movie.
Yeah, I don't hate it at all, man. I thoroughly enjoyed it actually. There's moments where it's like, but nothing that killed it for me personally. People need to get off it.
Yeah.
So there you have it, kids. Glass Onion in the books. Stay on the lookout for an episode of the first film, which I'm sure we'll circle back to at some point. For all you guys know, we've already done it, and you're listening to the sequel right now, and you've already listened to the first one because sometimes we record out of order here. It's kind of how we roll. So, Chris, give me your last word on Glass Onion.
I think it's absolutely a movie people should take the time to watch, whether you've seen the first one or not. Like it, you really don't need to see the first one to go into this and understand everything right away.
Yeah, well said. Well said, Ed. You don't need to see the first one. I think that fixes it for a lot of people who just don't like to invest sometimes in multiple films at one time about one thing. So, yeah, I'm with you that you don't need to see the first one. It's a highly enjoyable film. Go check it out, kids. We'll see what happens with these characters, with certain characters at least moving forward with this franchise and see where it goes from at this point. But for now, that is Glass onion. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.